Hello, everyone, and welcome to our 12th annual Write Michigan Short Story Contest Award Ceremony. My name is Amber Elder, and I am a programming specialist here at the Kent District Library, and I am also a member of the Write Michigan team this year. We are so happy you're here, whether you are one of our published writers or whether you are somebody here supporting one of our published writers, we are glad that you're here. Every writer knows how much work goes into creating a short story, from first developing the idea to writing it down, then the tweaking, the revising, the rewriting, all of that work that goes into it. What you might not know is all of the work that goes behind the scenes to make this Write Michigan Short Story Contest happen. So I would like to give a shout out to some of my team members on the Write Michigan team. This includes Remington Steed, who handled all of the web-related components of this contest. Deb Schultz, our volunteer coordinator, who wrangled more than 120 volunteer reviewers to make this contest happen and narrow down all of our submitted stories into 10 semifinalists for each age group. Josh Mosey, who led this project and worked with our 8 judges to pick the winners and published finalists in each category. Katie Zeidema and Janice Greer, who tirelessly marketed and promoted this event to libraries, bookstores, schools, colleges, and more all across the state. Brad Baker, who worked with artist Adolfo Valle on the gorgeous Write Michigan artwork. And Lauren Hagerman-Tekeli and Kiva Filipek, who worked to make today's program a success. We also couldn't have this statewide competition without the help of our fabulous partners. Schuler Books is a founding partner of this contest, and it is through their Chapbook press that we have the gorgeous anthologies that we have every year. We also worked with Canton Public Library, Capital Area District Library, and the Michigan Learning Channel as partners this year for this event. It is with their help and their passion for encouraging writers of all ages from all across the state that we were truly able to make this a statewide competition. Finally, Meijer also helped to make this year's anthology and award ceremony happen, and we're grateful for their support. Now, short story writers know how much can be said in just a few short words. Short stories can be like a sucker punch to the gut with all the power and emotion they pack, or they can be like being welcomed into someplace full of peace with the thoughtfulness and the peacefulness that they offer. What makes them truly amazing, though, is that all of this is done in so few words. For the sake of this contest, that means 3,000 words or less. However, there are lots of people who are way more qualified than I am to talk about what a short story is and can be. So please join me in welcoming today's keynote speaker, the forward writer for this anthology, and also a Newbery Honor-winning author, Gary Schmidt.
Good afternoon. Oh, guys. What was that? Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Oh, okay, fine. It's good to be with you. It's really good to be with you. I don't know if we all appreciate how unique this event is, how unusual it is, in some places how countercultural it is. So I just want to thank everyone that's involved. This is an amazing event that could not happen in some states. And yet you have made it happen here. So thank you for that. I think we should applaud them one more time. I wanted to read to you, for all the writers in the room, I want to read to you what is in your future. You will get letters from people who want to comment on what you've done. And some of them are really wonderful, some are not. But I just want to give you a sense a little bit of what this is going to happen, what will happen to you in not so long from now. So this is a letter from Caitlin. Hello, Caitlin Jones here. I just wanted to say thank you very much. I personally have always wanted to meet a true author. I thought you did an awesome job on First Boy. I'm not sure if my book is going to be that good. When I grew up, I wanted to be a writer as well, since I already have 27 pages wrote by hand. That's not bad, right? I was wondering if I sent my book to you, would you be able to look it over without taking any ideas? Not to be mean about the idea thing, but I don't really know you. Which is true, right? I mean, that's true. I'm in 8th grade, and my language arts teacher asked us for our book report to read a book by a living author, to research the author and then write them a letter. I picked you because the book I had in my hand was the smallest and most interesting one I could find. Sorry if you take offense to me because I said your book was small. The truth is I can't read long books because I have a short attention span. So I don't normally finish books, but I finished reading Orbiting Jupiter. That book was good. That's pretty cool too. I like that letter. Before I finish this letter, I want to let you know a little bit about me. My name is Andrew. I'm 10 years old. I'm in 5th grade. I love reading. I love writing. In all of your busy work, it might be hard to get back to me, but I hope that you can do it by Thursday of this week. Also, if you can, please make it a written letter and not a letter that you send to everyone who sends you fan mail. This is for a school project, and I want to get a good grade. This is honesty, right? I mean, there's a really deep, honest thing. Dear Gary, I read exactly 38 pages into your book, Orbiting Jupiter, and I just wanted to say, why? The dog. Oh, geez, dude, you killed the dog. I'm sitting in my first period, this is my favorite sentence. I'm sitting in my first period English class on a nice, warm Friday, not expecting any emotional turmoil, at least until third hour. What's going to happen third hour? Don't you want to know? And you just drop a cute yellow dog's death like it's nothing. I am going to finish the book. But if one more dog dies, especially randomly, I'm going to be very upset. Sincerely, a very upset 9th grade girl, Heather. That's honest too. Now I will ask more questions and tell you about myself. This is from Kyle. How often do you write? I write every day at school. Is that cool? I write every day at school. Where do you write? I write at school and at home. Where do you get your ideas? I get mine from books and games. How do you get published? I self-publish every story I write. Do you have any suggestions for young writers? Now watch this. I need tips to write softly. I don't even know what that means, but isn't that lovely? I need tips to write softly. What made you become a writer yourself? I thought it was going to be fun. Yeah, I didn't. Well, anyway. This is from Joshua, from Rutledge, from Natick, Maine. You won the Newbery Award, so obviously your book was well liked, but overall, I think your book was kind of mediocre. In my opinion, there were some very well-written parts that I admired. Then there were the childish parts. Okay, and here's why I love this. Watch this. Then there were the childish parts, which weren't to my fancy. Okay. No one has said, weren't to my fancy since 1922. But there's Joshua from Natick, Massachusetts, who has it down. Natick, Massachusetts. Overall, your books have some connection to a middle schooler during a war in real life. Loss of a person in your life can impact your life forever. Just like that in Pay Attention, Carter Jones, loss of Courier and Howling made them sad all the time, and that everything is lost. But there's always hope that they will prevail and overcome their obstacles by the end of the book. That is why I like your books, and why they are interesting and enjoyable to read, because they understand me. That's one of the best things I've ever heard. Not that because I understand the book, but because the book understands me. My name is James. I'm in 8th grade. For our book, we had to read a book with more than 150 pages. When I opened your book and read the inside cover, I thought I'd hate it. Cooper doesn't even have a dog. I'm not sure why the dog thing is going on here. The first page really drew me into the book with a simile. The rest of the pages kept me reading. That's pretty amazing, too. The fact that Cooper's grandfather died helped me relate to Cooper. When I was 5 years old, my mother came into the room at 10 p.m. bawling. She mustered up the courage to tell me that my grandfather had died. The same grandfather I had shared apricot pinwheels with less than 8 hours before. It's the taco. When I found out Cooper's grandfather had died, I tried to set the book down. I let it sit on the coffee table for 2 days before I tried to pick it up again. I was able to keep reading all the way through the book. I have to say, I really liked it, although I'm not much of a reader. I really enjoyed reading your book. It helped me realize that all things have to leave us one time or another. How's that? All things have to leave us one time or another. I like your style of writing because you use a lot of beautiful. Isn't that cool? I also like how you use personification. Here's one I wrote. The wind tapping me on the shoulder as it felt as cold as a ghost. That's not bad. Your books make me feel like I can do anything. That's a nice thing to hear too. Those are in your future, guys, all of you who are writing. That will happen to you. You will think on some days, why have I done all this for so little reward? And then you will think, now I know. Now I get it. So we come today, to celebrate some of the finest writing that's going on in Western Michigan, which is an amazingly cool and wonderful thing to do. And I think that we celebrate not just the pyrotechnics of craft, though we do that as well, but also because we're going to be reading stories or see stories that speak to us, that give us questions, that make us want to think in an age when often we are not given that. There was an editorial yesterday in the New York Times about what our democracy needs. I don't know if anyone read that? The word that they came up with was this: solidarity. Isn't that interesting? Solidarity. Good stories confront us with hard questions and ask us individually and collectively about deep issues, about human questions. The mutual place where we can deal with those and ask those questions is the library, is the room in the school where you sit and read, is the desk where you sit and write. That's where we can ask those. It's where we come together, we can come together in solidarity to ask the same questions, even if we don't come up with the same answers. And that's exactly what I think we need a lot more of in our conversations. Here's how it works. There was, was just talking like 5 minutes ago about Man of La Mancha with, where did they go? Oh, there you are, yeah. I went to see Man of La Mancha once with a group of students from Calvin University. Among those students was an engineer. This was sort of rare. It's not the case that we go up to Stratford too often with engineers, but this guy wanted to go. I discovered why he wanted to go pretty early on, because his girlfriend was going and she made him. So as we handed out tickets that evening, I'm thinking, I wonder how he's going to like this play. He wasn't interested in the play at all. But I ended up, and this was just by chance, there were 3 tickets left. I gave one to him, one to his girlfriend, and then I ended up with the third one. We were in the top balcony away from everything. I mean, God would have a hard time seeing the stage from where we were. And of course, this engineer, was very pleased that the professor was sitting right next to him and his girlfriend. He just was very happy about that. At the end of the play, if you remember the play, there's a scene when Don Quixote, who has lived through this illusion, it seems, has been caught by his family, and they have brought him back to the home, essentially to die. And the family wants Don Quixote to speak his true name, because Don Quixote is a made-up identity. And so they gather around him so that he will have this moment of realism, that he will know who he is before he dies. And they demand that he respond. And they say, tell us your name. What's your name? What's your name? So that there's this moment of realism. And this engineer, no kidding, guys, this engineer leans forward, and we really are in seventh heaven. He leans forward, and he speaks a whisper. Tell him your name. Say Don Quixote. Say it. Don Quixote. Don Quixote. And when Don Quixote, the character, speaks, he doesn't do it. He gives in. He speaks his real name. And this kid leans back in total despair. And I thought I would have done this whole trip, the finances, everything about it, for that kid at that moment, who in a moment of solidarity with the entire audience is whispering what we're all hoping. Speak the name that is true to you, Don Quixote. Now, Don Quixote does come back and speak that before the end of the play, and this kid was happy about that. But he had seen something, right? He had perceived something that's true, that he had to make a call between illusion and reality. And illusion was what he wanted in his dying moment. How does he feel about that? And that question doesn't go away at the end of the play, but it's a powerful question. Or a story like this. You all have heard the name of Percival. Percival is a powerful knight, and in the Arthurian legends he is galloping around doing what Arthurian people do. And he comes one night to a ghostly castle. It appears out of the fog. And so he rides down, and there is this guy who is sort of the steward who's watching over the castle. And he greets him like he's known he was going to come the whole time. And he says to him, come in, come in. He takes the horse. He takes care of the horse. He gives him new clothes. He brings him into this big meal that's going on, a huge fire. People are playing games. They're playing music. The food is amazing. And he's warm for the first time in such a long time, such a long time. He's been watching for the Grail, looking for the Grail, and it means going through freezing times and just horrible times. He sleeps outside on rocks, which must have been fun, right? And, in solid armor and like freezing temperatures. So he's just reveling in this moment of comfort. And then the steward comes and gets him, and he says, come with me. And he takes him through these long hallways and gets to a room way off from everything else. And he says, this is the king. This is the king's room. And he brings him into the room. And there is the king who's lying on his bed, the Fisher King. He's lying on his bed in agony. He's just so deeply wounded. He can hardly move. And Percival stands above him, and he doesn't know what to say. He doesn't know what to say to this guy who's so hurt. And after a while, the steward comes and takes Percival away and puts him into a bedroom. He sleeps through the night. And in the morning, when he gets up, everything is gone in the castle. Everything's gone. All those people, the meal, the music, everything's gone. And he wanders these halls thinking, what happened? And there by the door, he meets the steward who hands him the reins. And he says to him, you fool. You fool. And Percival says, what? And he says, why didn't you ask him the question? Why didn't you oh, you fool. And Percival says, what question? And the steward shakes his head and goes, fool. And he gets on the horse and rides away. And now he has a new quest. It's not the Grail. It's the question. What was the question that he was supposed to ask the steward? And for a year he wanders the countryside, meeting many people, asking many questions of his own, hearing many questions that come back to him. And he gathers them, the wisest, most powerful questions he can imagine. And he has a long list. Which was the right one? A long list, but he's not sure. And then another day comes, another night, and it's foggy and cold, and the fog clears away, and there's the castle again. And Percival rides down into the castle, and there's the steward. He hands the reins of the horse to the steward. There's no one else there. And Percival, without a word, follows those halls that he had found before and goes into the king's room. And there is the Fisher King. He's lying there wounded in agony. And all those questions that he had gathered for a year, all the wise and powerful questions that he had finally gathered, he's desperately trying to think of which one he should ask. What's the question? And then he gets close and he looks down at the Fisher King and he says, nothing. And all the questions in that nothingness drop. They're all gone. And the Fisher King looks at him again, and Percival looks down and he says simply this, Father, which is endearment, not relation. Father, what aileth thee? What's the matter? That's it. And that's the question. The question is one of total compassion. What's the matter? What can I do? And when he asks it, can you guess what happens? The Grail descends, and Percival becomes the first of the Arthurian knights to actually hold and to see the Holy Grail that he's been looking for. He asked the right question. Now, how can you read that story and not at the end of it say, what's the question? That's a story that wants us to ask that same question. What is it? What's the question I can ask in this culture at this time that will bring the Holy Grail down? Or this for you writers. This is the last one. I'll go with this. There's a hard book by Thomas. All of Thomas Hardy's books are hard. This is Jude the Obscure. If you've read that book, I congratulate you. That is no easy one to get through. And it is horrible things happen in it. And you say, really? Really? Are you going to make me go through that? And Thomas Hardy is saying, yeah, I am going to make you go through it. So at the beginning of the book, there's a young boy, Jude, who's got a book in his hand. And he can't read. He can't read at all. He's about almost 10. And I've always loved that opening because I was almost 10 before I could ever read. And it just always strikes me as, yeah, I know this feeling. He's sitting on a log, and down the hill, he sees this town where all the world's economy is going on. And he's holding this book, and he's by himself sitting on the log. And when he looks down there, he thinks this. If someone had come, right, this is the narrator who thinks this, I should say. If someone had come right then and sat down beside him and taught him to read with that book, then everything would have been different. And now here's Thomas Hardy. But nobody came because nobody ever does. Good night. No, I mean, nobody came because nobody ever does. Writers here, you're the person who sits on the log next to this kiddo. That's what you do. You sit on the log. You say, here's the book. I write with you. You read with me. We'll talk. We'll talk. We will be in total solidarity and think about this issue. Now, that seems like it's so obvious, right? I mean, it's just so obvious that that's what the writer does. But today, we live in a vastly different world than Thomas Hardy lived in. And the world that we live in now is filled with, it seems to me, so much anger, so much angst, much of which is aimed at books and at the writers of books. And if you are a writer in this room and you are going to be serious about this the rest of your life, this will be aimed at you. It's not will it be aimed or may it, will it happen, it will happen. This is absolutely true. And the change that we've done since the 1960s when we talk about banning books and censorship is that we used to talk about, I don't like this book, or this book is a problem because it has this image or this word or something like this. Now the language is very different. The language is, I don't like you because you dared to write it. That's a huge change. It's a really, really big change. We've changed our emphasis on censorship and banning away from issues of language to the dislike of people. That's something we need to be thinking about, it seems to me. And I'm not going to fight the cultural wars with you here today, and you're saying, good, thank goodness. But there are some things that we need to think about, writers in this room, about what this means for you. Over the last 2 years, bannings have dramatically increased, not only in small school libraries or large school libraries, but also in public libraries, in places in Grand Rapids even. That's a huge shift in terms of how many this is happening. And it makes books sometimes more difficult to even get. So you all know about Jamestown Public Library, which was for a time defunded. How could that have happened? How could that have happened? They had some books that people didn't like, and so the place is defunded. And if you think that's unique, it happened 700 times last year. 700 times libraries were defunded across the United States. 1,900 titles in the last 2 years have been banned. 1,900 titles. Many of those titles, not all, but many of those titles are about or with diverse populations. Remember that book club you used to be part of when you were a kid, when you would go to a Scholastic Book Club? Remember those? They now have made it possible that you can order the books for your class minus any books by a diverse person or diverse author. They have literally said you can just have this package and not worry about that. Okay. Some libraries are facing closures, defundings. The number of bomb threats against library has gone up 16% in the last year. Bomb threats, guys. School and public library challenges last year, 3,362. Those are the reported ones. Most do not get reported. In some states, Florida, 1,400 titles have been banned. 1,400 titles are banned. Another trend that's very difficult to work with or to even to sort of monitor is what might be called gray censorship. That is where your book is just sort of removed, but no one fusses about it. There's no case, there's nothing that's written about it, it just happens. And if you think that this is something that we can kind of just deal with and sort of get through, I give you this. I was just down in Texas a little while ago. I went to 5 different libraries. Every library, without me starting the conversation, was about books that were being banned. One librarian, though, said it goes way beyond that. So she said, the other day I came out of the parking lot and there was a Ford truck, big truck right behind me. It drove all the way behind me, all the way to my house. Another said in another library that she regularly checks in with the police at 4:15. If she doesn't call in, then they come to her home because this is a librarian. She's received so many threats. Another who told me that she went to a meeting, a district meeting, and she knew that there was going to be a book that was going to be challenged. Her library didn't have the book. So she brought with her her computer so that she could show anyone who asked, here's our entire holdings. You'll see I don't have that book. And so when the book was in fact challenged at the school district meeting, she did exactly that. She stood up and she handed the person who challenged it handed her a computer and said, here it is, just look, you'll see, we don't have that book. And the person who had challenged said, huh. And then she goes like this, you're the people in the district meeting. She goes, we all know that you librarians have secret shelves. I'm not making this up. You have secret shelves, and you take those books and you connect them with the students that you want to connect them to. And she said, everyone in the room nodded. And she's going, whoa, I don't have a secret shelf. But what do you say? No, I don't. I mean, what are you going to say at that moment? Or the librarian who, weeping, said to me, I'm a single mom. I have a daughter. I've been told that I can keep my job if I take The Hate U Give off the shelves. If I don't take it off the shelves, I'm fired. In other words, I have to choose between my integrity as a librarian and my financial well-being with my daughter. And I said, what did you do? You know what you did. She left it on the shelf. I'm sorry, she took it off. I mean, she had to have it checked, but she's crying as she tells me this. This is the kind of world that we live in right now, and it's a frightening world for the writer, because you will come up against this. I promise you, you will come up against this. So how do we live in a world like that, recognizing that this is what writers are going to face? Richard Peck, a great writer from the 80s and 90s, claimed that all writers have to recognize that any book you write, any short story you pen, any poem that you do, will probably or certainly have someone who wishes that you didn't do it, that you hadn't written that. And that someone, he writes, will often be backed up by a well-funded group. So what do you do in this world? Well, I think the first thing is to recognize this. That if you're a writer, you're going to recognize that the story that you write is sometimes, maybe must be, uncomfortable for someone. Of course. Why else are you writing it? Catherine Patterson likes to talk about this. She says, it's not possible to write a book or a short story about life in Eden. It's just not possible. Why? Because nothing happens. Eve wakes up. She says, Adam, what do you want to do today? Oh, I guess the peas. All right? And they hoe the peas. They eat a few. They're good. And then they play with the lions. You know, they hang out by the pool. And then you go to bed. And then you're done. And you write that story again and again and again. And you know what? It's boring. It's horrible. No one's going to read that. You have to have the fall, before you can write a novel. You can write poetry before that, but you cannot write a short story, you cannot write a novel until the fall happens. Because novels, by their definition, are about our broken world. That's exactly what's absolutely imperative to recognize. It's about our broken world. And writers here, when you write about that, as you must, you're going to get in trouble, because there are some people who wish that you wouldn't write about that. But in fact, that's what your task is, if you're serious about this. You're writing about a broken world. You're also writing about a world that's desperately in search of some sort of fix, some way out of that. And how many great stories do we know where you can say, here's someone who's in trouble, and find someone who sits on the log and says, let's get out of this. Augustine says this: what is the writer supposed to do? And the first thing he says is, well, the writer's supposed to make something beautiful. And you have. My gosh, you have. Writers are supposed to make something beautiful. And then he says, but if that's where you start, no, that's wrong. And then he says, well, what else? Well, and then he says, understanding. Bringing understanding to someone, bringing knowledge to someone, that's important too. And many of you have done that. You make something beautiful. You make something that brings understanding. And then he says, is it more? Is there more than that even? And he says, yeah, you bring wisdom. You bring wisdom, not just knowledge, but an understanding of how to handle that knowledge and what it tells to you. You bring wisdom too. Beauty, and understanding and knowledge, wisdom. The writer brings all of those things. And then he says this: if you start with any of that, any of it, then you've missed it entirely. You've missed it entirely. He says, before beauty, before understanding and knowledge, before wisdom, the writer has to ask this: does the book serve? Does it serve? Has it somehow brought into the world something about service? Have you served someone with your gift? Have you served someone with your words? For the writer, that's first. That has got to be first. All that other stuff, worrying about will I get banned, worrying about will I get published, about whether I'm going to have enough money, all that stuff, that's late. Right now, as you write, are you bringing beauty and knowledge and understanding and wisdom, and are you beginning with service? Service particularly. Is it not the case that so many of the books that are being banned now are going to serve some way? Is that what they're about? Isn't that what they're about? Is it not the case that a book which talks about discriminating practices like The Hate You Give, isn't that serving? Is it not the case that the stories of a trans kid who finds someone who's gentle and loving in a community, isn't that service? Is it not the case that a book like Borderlines, Alan Stratton, which helps us to understand a Muslim family in a white community, isn't that service? Is it not the case that a book about abuse of a kiddo might, for perhaps the first time, show them that it's wrong, that he's being treated wrongly? Isn't that service? Is it not the case that reading a book like, say, Sunshine, Jared Krasowska, a hard read about mortal illness, is it not the case that that can expose to so many kids that courage and nobility and honor are involved with this as well? If we start to judge books this way, isn't service attractive? Isn't that what we should be doing? What should a book do? It should serve. Or to put it this way, maybe this would even be better. Why not foster a community where art can do what it's supposed to do, which is this? Art is meant to give us more to be human beings with. That's what it's about. Art is always meant to give us more to be human beings with. In his 11 addresses to the Lord, John Berryman, the great poet, writes these lines, and he's speaking directly to God here. Whatever your end may be, accept my amazement. May I stand until death forever at attention for your least instruction or enlightenment. I even feel sure you will assist me again, Master of Insight and Beauty. There's your charge, guys. Stand at attention. Be amazed. Watch. Watch for whatever is given to you, the least instruction, the least bit of enlightenment. And for God's sake, turn it into insight and beauty. Thanks so much. And congratulations. You guys are amazing.
More than 1,200 entries were submitted for this year's contest. And now we are delighted to honor the 18 writers who are part of this year's anthology. Josh Mosey is my colleague in this, and I'm going to invite him up on the stage now so he can help me distribute awards. So here's how this next bit is going to go. We are going to start the award giving with our youth winners. When I call your name, please come forward on the right side of the stage over here. And after you're receiving your award, please go over there to the left side of the stage where our lovely photographer Katie will be taking your photo. And then please stay there until everybody in your age category has been called, as we would like to take a group photo with all of first our youth winners, then all of our teen winners, and then all of our adult winners. Sound good? Okay, for our first winner today, we have Layla Coralou, the Youth Judge's Choice winner for A Long Forgotten Memory. Congratulations, Layla. Come on over. For our next winner, we have Nora Sportel, our Youth Judge's Choice runner-up, with her story, Halloween House. Next, we have Elena Hood, the Youth Reader's Choice winner, for her story, To You from Every Ending Cosmos. And I have a swag bag before you leave, okay? Okay. Mm-hmm. Oh. Next, we have the first of our youth published finalists, Emma Kruger, for her story, The Boy and the Dove, a short story. Congratulations. Next, and this person isn't with us today, but Rylan Day won for the youth published finalist for Talons and Thrones. Right? And our final youth is going to be Hunter Miller, another youth published finalist for The Seven Principles. You know? Congratulations. Thank you.
Congratulations.
Thank you. And while we're doing that final group shot, let's talk teens. The first of our teen winners is going to be Sonia DeWild, our Teen Judge's Choice winner for her story, A House with a Garden. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Next, we have Finn Rice, the Teen Judge's Choice runner-up for the story Mist Men. Congratulations. Now we have Eli Ferguson, our Teen Reader's Choice winner for the story Omaha on Fire. Next, we have the first of our teen published finalists, Lucy Yoder for I Will Always Eat Burnt Biscuits. Our next teen published finalist, Caitlin Messina, for High School House Hunters, and this is also someone who couldn't make it today, but still. And our final teen published finalist, Jordan Fletcher, with The People Beside You. And now, for our final category, we are looking at all of our fabulous adults. Our first is going to be Joshua Boers, the Adult Judge's Choice winner with Gambler's Rest. Next is going to be Kelly Selby, our Adult Judge's Choice runner-up for her story at the Hemlock House. Samantha Engel is our Adult Reader's Choice winner for her story, Home.
Thank you.
The first of our adult published finalists, Nathan Grajek, for the story 11:27 p.m. Maggie Roberts Van Haften is another adult published finalist for her story, Gristle, Witch Hazel, and the Kickball. And finally, we have Heather Picardet, an adult published finalist with her story, My Sister's Promise. Thank you all again for joining us today. And before we scatter for the treats and the signing, let's give all of our writers one last round of applause.